What is the sense, the meaning of the word Turan? That the original meaning of this word was a tribe or the people. It is the same as in the case of Deutschen, Teuten, Teute, Turan, the same, or Tautas in Lithuanian, that is nation or people. So that was the name for the people of these steppes. And the meaning of Turan was the space populated by the nomadic tribes. And these tribes, in the Western time, in the ancient time, when this term was used, these peoples were absolutely Indo-European as well. So we are dealing with very interesting dualism. That is very important because that has to do with the origins of the Indo-European peoples. And when we try and when we start to explore what from Iran and Turan, what kind of civilization or society was more ancient, we come into the absolutely conclusion, that is the main position of 80 historians, that Turanian Indo-European tribes were first. So the Iranians that were at the origin, at the source of sedentary Iranian culture, were the ex-nomadic tribes that turned into sedentary tribes. So they came from the same Turanian space. That is main position. There are many debates and quarrels where exactly was the center of this Indo-European proto-Indo-European culture. Where in Turan? But everybody agrees, almost everybody, that was Turan, somewhere in Turan. There is position that was far to the east or to the south of the Ural mountains, or in the Caspian area, or to the north of the Black Sea, but somewhere from Donau or Delta up to the southern Siberia. That was the large area. The second principle of the Indo-European regions is that the first Indo-European cultures were nomadic, so strictly linked to the pastoralism. They were pastoralist, nomadic, Turanian tribes. And I would suggest the reading of Maria Gimbutas, Lithuanian author Maria Gimbutas, that have explained excellently, brilliantly, the kind of logic of this Indo-European expansion. The idea is that according to Maria Gimbutas and according to the many Russian scientists and archaeologists as well, the origin was of these Turanian Indo-European tribes were somewhere to the south of the Ural, and around Chelyabinsk city there was Urkheim, there was a motherland, Indo-European motherland, somewhere, let's say, to the south of the Ural. I don't insist on this concrete location, but that is more or less, as the majority or the serious part of the historians agree about it. That is a kind of destiny. That is to be like the sun, to shine and to expand the fire, the light of the culture from the starting point. So that is very important in order to grasp what is Indo-European design. And that is reflected in all Indo-European languages and Indo-European cultures. All Indo-European peoples are heirs of this Indo-European design, because we are speaking, we are thinking, we are redefined by this Indo-European solar design of this Turanian, not Iranian, not yet Iranian. Iranian culture is the second phase. First phase is to be Indo-European, is to be Turanian. Horse, weapon, and hill. Three signs, three traits of this Kurgan type of culture. So that is Indo-European design. So we could trace how, from the point of Turan, somewhere in Turan, maybe, because the first wheels were discovered precisely to the south of the Ural Mountains, and first traces of domestication of the horse at the same, more or less the same space. So we could presume, that would be logical to presume, that the center of Turan was situated somewhere there, in the Kazakh-Russian steppes. The most interesting conclusion from that the pure type of this Indo-European culture, we need to search in the nomad Indo-European tribes as an Afghanian or Ossetian, actual Afghanian Pashtuns, or some Pakistani tribes, nomadic as Baluchi in Iran and Pakistan, or actual Ossetians, the direct descendants from Sarmatian tribes. They turned into a sedentary very recently, and they were a continuator of this Turanian type of culture. So, and Iranians were secondary, and Turanians were first. Any Indo-European society consisted from three castes. Was priests. They were kings and priests. The sacred kings. They were considered to belong to the heaven. They were divine. They were considered to be deities, divine beings, and they represented life as the son of God. This priest or Brahman was considered to be the son of God, of heaven God. Second caste was warrior or kshatriya in India system, and the third caste were the simple pastoralists or masters of the animals, of the cows, of the horses, and all society represented a kind of army going through the space in order to fight, to die, because there was no death in our understanding. There was a kind of elevation. They were considered, every soul were considered to be the heaven sparks coming down to the earth in order to return. And there was hierarchy, absolutely vertical hierarchy, with the priests on the top, the warriors in the middle, and the pastoralists, simply pastoralists, at the bottom. Because the simply pastoralists dealt with the material aspect of the cows, of the horses, of the sheep. So they were considered less pure and less perfect. But they strived to be the same, to be wise as priests and kings, and to be brave as warriors. So the value system was based not on the simple pastoralists and their goals, but in the center was the concept of the priest, and warrior, and they defined as well the ethics of the third caste. But everything was absolutely vertical, and we could see that here, in that situation, pure version of Logos of Apollo in our neological understanding. That is the most brilliant, most expressive, most clear of Logos of Apollo, vertical, because all the living was considered to a kind of coming down of the light of the sun into the sacred kings and priests, into the expanding, going through the warriors and finishing with the pastoralists, in order to return to the heaven. And what is interesting, that is the quality of the earth in the steppe, in the Turan. The earth was hard. It was not designed to put the seeds, to plant something there. That was a kind of space in order to get to and to return back. There was no under earth dimension in that vision and the steppe. The most demonic, most devilish, most negative creature, symbolical, was mouse, living under the surface of the space. The whole of the mouse was the hell, and that was the symbol of Satan in their tradition. Or the snake, living under surface of the Turanian steppes, but not deeper. So under surface, that is tradition with no roots. That is society with no roots, because the roots are in heaven. So that was completely different version. That is not something growing from the earth, but something growing from the sky, expanding its branches on the earth, precisely as in the European tribes, and returning to the roots. But return to the roots is to return to the gods, to the fire, and that is cremation rite. To put the body of the dead man into the fire in order to return through the fire to the sun, to heaven. So everything was quite opposite that we are habituated. That was purely nomadic Indo-European tradition. That was as well pure type of Apollonian Logos, pure type. What is Indo-European? It is Apollonian, we could say. That is exactly the same as Logos of Apollo, and any kind of normal, known by us in the European society, from Celtic, German, Latin, Illyrian, Thracian, Hellenic, Greek, Hittite, Iranian, Indian, Scythes, Sarmats, Slavs, Baltic, every kind of Indo-European culture was based originally on this Logos of Apollo. The name was given by the Greeks, but the same we could identify easily in Veda, in Avesta, in German Odin myths, in Celtic legends and myths. Way of thinking of Indo-European people that is strictly the same in the time of Urheimat and modern Indo-European mind. So there are the constant principles. They affect us in our understanding of the cosmos, of the political society, of the history. That this ideology is reading, the grille de lecture, interpretation, novel scale. Through this reading, we decipher, we interpret what is going on. We consider the society there is philosophers or intelligentsia, there is a military, and there is all the rest of the population. That is vertical, hierarchical vision with the president or leader as a kind of ancient sacred king, military or administrative groups, and population. We have, it is unconscious in us, but any Indo-European society is based around this axis, these three functional axes: modern or ancient, Christian or pagan, Eastern in India, Turanian, or West, Celtic, German, Slav, French, Latin. So that is very interesting. According to Dugin, nothing changes as that. More than that, through this ideology, we interpret the history of founding of Rome, the history of founding of any country, of any Indo-European state. There is always some messenger of God or some sacred king coming from outside, because the foundation of the kingdom were from outside, from Turan, coming these nomads somewhere and founding there the city. But the city was the kind of fortress. That was not continuation of the village. That was something created from outside, with the kind of military men coming somewhere and creating the fortress in order to citadel, in order to defend this military position. So military conquest with some heroes or sacred heroes, leaders coming from outside. That was the main scenario. The god is the heaven, the god, and distance from the god is necessary test, for example, for Saul. It is not evil in such. So any kind of evil, it's only test, experience that try to put obstacles in our way to return to ourselves. And in Indian, there is a Platonist version, but there is as well much more developed Indian Vedic Advaita metaphysics, where there is this concept, Advaita Vedanta, Indian metaphysics, that stresses this point, that we go from the reality and truth into the world of the illusion in order to overcome illusion and to return to ourselves, because the essence of ourselves is God. So we are gods, but we have forgotten about that, India says. So there is no problematic. There is Advaita Vedanta, non-dualistic version of Apollonian Logos. So everything that is not God is as well God, but not knowing it. So there is no darkness. The darkness is simply the absence of the light, and absolute darkness could not exist. There is only related darkness. That is the kind of darkening of the light. And darkening of the light, as we know in our observation of the nature, is the first stage of the dawn, of the sunshine, sunrise. If there is no darkening, there is no lightening.